everyone to today's webinar on the EOI, Expression of Interest process for the Australian Space Data Analysis Facility. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land in which we meet. I'm here on the Noongar Nation, so Kaya, but I'd also like to pay my respects to both the land and the sea in which we learn from our elders today, past, present and emerging. So we're really excited to be sharing with everyone the next round of the expression of interest and hopefully garnering some more projects and different ideas and things like that from the broader community. So my name is Asdaf Academy. I'm the Business Development Manager for the Australian Space Data Analysis Facility. Our Director, Professor Melanie Johnston-Hollett, she unfortunately couldn't join us today, but she is also the director of the Curtin Institute for Computation, of which you'll learn a little bit more about shortly. So why are we even in existence? And I think that a lot of us will know that there's a lot of underutilized space data. So this is data that is captured predominantly through satellite imagery. We can also be referring to, drone imagery and other types of data sources as well. But for the purpose of our facility, we do focus on more of the space sector. So the global space economy is worth around $468 billion, and I'm sure it's a growing market, and that number has probably increased already. So of which the Australian component, that's currently 4.8 billion, is growing rapidly. And actually, as we see the sector and the broader economy growing, I know we're here over in WA, which is predominantly mining, but we're seeing a lot of that transfer of knowledge and application as well. So 80% of this value in Australia is generated by the application. So that's a utilisation of this data. So why aren't we using it? And we see this as a really strong opportunity for us to grow the sector as well. There's currently around 10,000 people working in the space industry, but the government and the Australian Space Agency have a goal to triple that by 2030. I think the most current numbers are probably already reaching around the 12,000 people, but we really need to upskill the workforce and making sure that we're making the most of this investment into our space sector as well. We were established in last year, so 2021, following a grant from the Australian Space Agency and also the WA government, Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation as well. So we've been established to support majority of our clients are small to medium enterprises, but also research organisation in terms of actually upskilling and utilising space data and supporting their access to this data as well. So delivery partners, so we've got the Curtin Institute for Computation. As I mentioned, Professor Melanie Johnston-Hollett is the director of the institute and also the director of Asdaf as well. So that's actually a fairly old picture of the CIC team. We need to get it updated. It has grown. I think there's around 45 people within the team now. So it's an interdisciplinary knowledge accelerator. So we've got a really diverse team of data scientists, HPC specialists, and also a full sort of project and support team as well, which actually works across industry and across a lot of different sectors. And we'll get a chance to meet one of the specialists as well, with Lee, a little bit later today. We're also, the other delivery partner is Pawsey, so that's a high performance computing facility supporting Australian researchers. And then we also, also want to share more about some of these other, facilities that are actually across Australia as well. But Pawsey is based over here in WA, and then we've got NCI over on the East Coast as well. As I mentioned, we said we need to do a bit of a recap in terms of some of our stats as well, because the CIC is really growing, and I'm sure many of you can relate to the need for more and more data scientists. But what is really unique about the CIC is it's the largest within the Southern Hemisphere from a university perspective. And we were working on a range of different projects, but it also gives an opportunity for the team members to be closely upskilled with their colleagues as well. So they're learning across a variety of different disciplines and use cases as well, so they can actually learn from each other and grow their internal capability and capacity through that approach. As part of the broader offering within Curtin of the Digital Transformation Program, so we're co-located with Innovation Central Perth. There's also the Optus 5G Lab as part of the Optus Curtin Alliance, the WA Data Science Hub, and also we've got the Curtin Cisco Centre for Networks as well. So that's a really growing sort of program and initiatives that are reaching out to a range of different industry partners, predominantly within WA, but it's really important to recognise that Asdaf is a national facility and we are here to support companies, researchers across Australia. As I mentioned, we're here. We have a really strong focus on educating, and part of that is through these projects that we're doing and offering our skills and services to support small to medium enterprises. And we will hear from one of our project partners a little bit later with BMT. But part of that project and that process is that we then upskill and enable those that we're so we can use our technical expertise, but making sure that we've got a transfer of knowledge back to the sector, and then they can actually then sort of use that as a broader upskilling as well. So we can work with them, a range of different small to medium enterprises, and supporting them in terms of just optimising some of their daily operations, but also part of their growth strategies as well, because we really want to empower them to have a stronger data literacy and increasing the data usage. And if we're going to achieve that ambitious goal of having 30,000 in the sector by 2030, then we really need to make sure that we're growing the talent locally as well and really building on that self-run capability. So we've got sort of 4 areas of work in which we operate. So we've got our data engineering, access to data science expertise, and that's the process that we'll be running through with everyone shortly. In terms of accessing space data, so we do want to make sure that we're making the most of, different open data sources, but we have a data directory, so make sure that you look on our website as well. If you're trying to find, there's a lot of different sources of data. It is by no means, definitive in terms of this list, and we're constantly building on it, but do encourage people to jump on if they're looking for particular areas and sectors as well. We run a series of training and capacity building programs. We have either webinars and we've run some boot camps as well. So really making sure that we're building up that knowledge transfer as well through that process. And the other thing that's shining a spotlight on the sector through hosting a series of sundowners that have been over here within Perth, but also we've also been supporting, we're over at the Australian Earth Observation Forum over in Brisbane last month, and wherever we can, presenting at different forums and things as well. As I mentioned, what does that knowledge transfer sort of look like? In terms of a really practical perspective, and Lee will emphasise it as well, we encourage people to put forward your project ideas. Obviously, we understand that there can be some commercial sensitivities, and we're certainly not asking for your all your secrets to be shared, but reach out and make sure that there's something that we might be able to help you with or point you in the right direction, or what it is that you're seeking to achieve. And we do encourage people to reach out, even if it's just to have a bit of a conversation with one of the data scientists to explore whether there is a potential project or not. We do encourage people to reach out, and we'll see if we can help. Our training and capacity building. So at the moment we are in the process. We don't have a training coordinator here at the moment. However, we have built up some resources which you'll see that are online through our Asdaf Academy, which is more an introductory level. And we also promote the different programs and initiatives that are available that we'll be utilising, not just space data, but a broader data science upskilling. Would also encourage people to have a look at our collaborator in terms of the WA Data Science Innovation Hub, WADSI. Whilst it is WA based, they share a lot of resources and promote a lot of different initiatives as well, that would encourage people to have a look at what they've got as resources available. So we've already reached, quite a few people, and it's great to see a few repeat people coming on board as well. Yes, we're conscious that we have a stronger focus here in WA. That would be partly due to the border closures, where we've been able to operate a lot more freely over the last year or so. But we are doing what we can to reach everyone else across the country. So we will be running through the process for this, but applications for round 4 are currently open to access our data science expertise, whether you're needing some help with some algorithms or data engineering, or trying to work out what the right type of data to access might be. And Lee will be able to talk through what that can look like. We don't purchase data on your behalf. And we don't have our own data, but we can help point people in a direction as to where they might be able to find a data source that's suitable for their needs. As I mentioned, we have the Asdaf Academy. Would strongly encourage you to jump online and have a look. It's a really introductory program, great for those that are just getting started and wanting to understand a little bit more about what is possible. And that really takes you through some step-by-step approaches and some interesting little tools and things like that to get you started. Our current projects, it's really important to recognise the work that's been done already. So just a couple of them, we're working with BMT, and we will hear from them shortly in terms of their project and who they are, and the process that they underwent to become involved with Asdaf. And they have also, one of their other teams has also been awarded another project as well. So we strongly encourage people to submit an EOI and at least express what your needs are, and we can work with you on those projects as well. We're also really excited to work with the School of Population Health within Curtin University. This originated from the University of Sydney, in terms of looking at some of the impact of smoke as well. So I think that, particularly if you're over here in Perth at the moment, it was very smoky yesterday. And so starting to understand, well, what do we need to do and how can we use the satellite imagery to help those in terms of emergency workers, but also to maintain the population's health as well from inhaling that smoke. I'll hand over now to Lee, and he will take you through the process that we go through, and we'll have a chance at the end to answer any questions, but please feel free at any time to pop them in to the chat box, and we will get to them a little bit later.
Hi everyone, I'm Lee Tyers. I'm a HPC specialist at the Curtin Institute for Computation, and I also work as a data scientist through Asdaf. I'll kind of run through a bit of what the EOI process is and hopefully demystify it a bit for you. So if you want to submit an EOI, an expression of interest, you'll first need to go to our website at asdaf.space. You can go asdaf.space/EOI or find the drop down at the top and go to the EOI. First step is submit the EOI, so it's there. Once you've submitted it, an Asdaf staff member, probably me, will be in touch, and we'll kind of try and figure out what sort of project we can work on with you. And yeah, try and bring a technical person there if you can, so we can really get into the details of the project. Once we've kind of had a few back and forth discussions, we'll help you put together a plan that will then go to a selection panel, and we decide on what projects we can take based on each of the project's merits, and how much available data scientist resources we have. As a good example of an EOI, make sure your contact information is there, make sure we know who you are, and you have an email address in there so we can get back to you and have a bit of a back and forth. Other things like your company's main line of work help us out quite a fair bit in terms of understanding your perspective and where you might be coming from. You'll then need to fill out a bit about the project background. Doesn't need to be really in depth, just one paragraph really at most is fine. A brief overview of your specific project for someone not really from your field. Yeah, describing a bit about how the project relates to your work, why it's important, and how it fits in general as well with your company. We'll then probably want maybe about 1 or 2 paragraphs, just breaking it down in a bit more detail. Are there multiple parts? What do you need? And this is important as well, kind of explicitly outline what your goals are and what you kind of want from it. Maybe you want some Python code that goes and breaks down some rasters and does some data processing. Maybe you want something that you can deploy to AWS and automatically process things. We'll help you kind of narrow that down if you're not completely sure, but starting with some outline of what you want in the end is very, very helpful. Something else that helps us a lot is any external dependencies. Again, we can help you with these, but when we are deciding on projects, a very important thing is understanding whether or not the person and the project have thought out fully what's needed. This includes things like data. Maybe you're looking to do some validation or get some automated validation. An external dependency would be then actually having that in situ data in the first place already there, and being able to access it. Many a project always have issues with not Asdaf, but any sort of data science project always has issues with data access. Do you have any compute resources needed? We can get some through the Pawsey Supercomputing Center for the duration of the project, but knowing how much in general you might want is quite good. Access to any specific satellite data, we can only really help give you open satellite data, Sentinel-2, Landsat, and so forth. If you're looking at doing something with worldview or other things, you'd need to bring that beforehand, and it'd be another external dependency that you'd need to list that you need to be providing that. As well, ongoing technical expertise will generally look more favorable on projects if you have someone at your institution or the project set up such that when the project shuts down, when our support period ends, you can still somehow deal with the code. And we can help you with that and make sure that the project is aimed so that it keeps being useful to you. But we want to avoid situations where we might do something, then our support period ends and the code breaks or something like that, and you have no one to deal with that. So when you're going through all of this, things to keep in mind is what we're actually looking for. When we go through the selection panel at the end, we're looking for a few main things, and they're kind of, how much is this going to help you in your company? How much is this going to create some economic benefit? Any business capacity growth, any extra potential for commercialization? You know, does this kind of streamline some workflows for you? Does it save you a lot of time? Any academic impact of it? Any social impact? Generally, the value to the Australian space sector as a whole. As well, how much available data scientist expertise we have. If we have two projects to decide between, one that will take a year and, you know, be kind of helpful, but not really to a company, and another one that takes a week and will be amazingly helpful, we'll probably go with the one that takes a week first over the one that takes a year. So that's basically it. If you have any questions, we will be having a Q&A at the end, so feel free to put them in the chat. I don't see any in there at the moment, but I might hand over to Connor then.
Yeah, thanks, Lee and Asha. Yeah, my name's Connor Jones, and I work for BMT. And BMT is BMC Commercial Australia is one of many companies within sort of the group of BMT companies. So it's in that group of companies, there are offices all around the world in 16 countries. It was established in 1985, and it runs an employee benefit trust, which means that a section of the profits are put back into the employees, which is cool. And then BMC Commercial Australia is where I primarily work, and we're based within Australia, and we also work largely within adjacent countries, PNG, Solomon Islands, in the Pacific. And that business has a number of offerings. So we sell TwoFlow, which is a hydrodynamic modeling software. So we have a lot of people who are really, really good at software for water quality, hydraulic and water quality modeling. And we have a lot of people who are experts in ecology, but where we're sort of missing the gap there is in having the ability to bridge the remote sensing with the software, which is really where Lee has been really a wonderful addition, and it's been great for getting a few nice to have. So some of the sorts of projects that I guess I'm not a specialist in remote sensing. I've been doing it as a part of in environmental consulting, but my background is more in ecology, I look at habitat restoration. I'm trying to understand where habitats have been degraded through time historically, that's where satellite imagery has been really great, particularly if you want to go back into the past beyond where you might have some actual monitoring on the ground monitoring data. And so we've kind of been looking at data cubes, which are, you know, like a layer stack of, you can imagine in that image there, we've got a cube which consists of lots and lots and lots of images, and you can query those in X, Y, Z, or like in the time dimension, and you can do all kinds of interesting stuff to look at how communities are changing. So that kind of, we got quite excited about that. I got quite excited about that, and in coming back to what Asha was talking about, I got put a little bit of time aside to go and sort of fiddle around with that, and then when I got really excited, I came back to the rest of the company and said, "Oh, look at this! All this neat stuff we can do. This is really cool. Maybe other people want to start dwelling in it and using it for coastal, looking at coastal processes or whatever." It's a diverse company, and I sometimes even don't keep up with all of the little things that we do. So it's just some, you know, sample outputs from that where, excuse me, we're looking back through time, and we're seeing, you know, these really nice time trends. And, you know, this is relatively straightforward for, you know, just looking through the atmosphere. We're looking at either surface water or looking at plant communities. And we thought, yeah, it'd be really great to be able to do this through the water. So we're like looking at more at benthic communities. And so that's really what the project that we put forward was, that would it be possible to, within a cube or within the layer stack, be able to kind of take this terrestrial remote sensing experience where we're like querying through lots and lots of layers, and do this in the marine environment. So that it's much more tricky because you know, a lot of the data that's within these layer stacks has been atmospherically corrected, and it's just ready to go. It's comparable from scene to scene. So the real challenge that we've taken on is being able to kind of remove the water column, remove the glint, and start looking at the seafloor, and there's a lot of human iterative aspects to that, which can't just be mechanized or automated, but in making that workload much more efficient than we were doing, and in a manner that is, or in a notebook form, which is then ready to go into one of these other steps that we have for querying spatial data. So we really want to be able to look at marine communities through time and track their changes more effectively and more efficiently. So that's really what the project was about.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Connor. I'm not sure if there's been any questions coming through yet, but certainly for people to, if you've got some questions and things like that. But what we thought would be great is to have a bit of a conversation around, you know, well, what was that thought process? You know, what happened in terms of applying? And so Connor, he, you know, I guess first sort of heard about Asdaf last year as we were launching, and attended one of the other webinars. And then, you know, attended the EOI webinar that we hosted last year for the first round, and, you know, worked up the courage to sort of be like, okay, well, what's this about? Let's take a chance. It's a new facility. Haven't really heard about them at all. So Connor, maybe just sort of walk through and share with everyone, like, what your thoughts were with that.
In particular for me, I mean, it sort of seemed a little like too good to be true. I kept thinking, what was the catch? Because we've got this, you know, these amazing data scientists at your disposal to kind of do something that, you know, you're struggling with a little bit, or that you don't have, you know, it's a little bit beyond your capability, or you can't get the time or the resources to get it. So I had a really strong desire, and I was kind of like, what's the catch? And it's been pretty catchless. Obviously, you've got to work through it, and sometimes I guess there's probably things that you know, and I think in that process of going through the EII, where you're sort of separating fantasy from reality a little bit, because you might want to be like, oh, I could do this, and just keep going forever. But there's certain things, there are limitations, and I think that process is really valuable in making sure that it is something real. But yeah, on a personal level, I guess feeling, I guess, a bit like my data science skills are not the best, and that I've come into remote sensing secondarily. Like I don't have a tertiary training in it, and it's all been kind of on the job training and like using it to sort of answer the questions that I'm interested in, but not having like a university education in remote sensing. So I guess there was like a little bit of feelings of inadequacy there about, and maybe not wanting to put yourself out there. But in the process so far, there hasn't been anything that makes you feel like is a silly idea, or yeah, it's been very supportive and a good working environment.
And I think that's a really good point in terms of, from that personal perspective as well, but having that that wish list and being able to really refine that. So for those that are watching, whether you're on live or watching a recording, I know a few people can't join us. And certainly for those that are watching it later, please send through directly any of those questions that you do have. Would certainly encourage people to make contact with us. But I think that the one thing that's I found really remarkable is the project support in terms of defining what those projects are, understanding the different timeframes, understanding the resource requirements, and that's really a strength that the CIC do bring as one of the delivery, as the the primary delivery partner for Asdaf. Is that there's a project support team that really helps people with that process. Now, the reason why we can offer these services through Asdaf for at no cost is because we have a grant, and part of that is that we need to offer these services back into the sector and really support the growth of the economy in that way. So, as I mentioned, we're funded by the Australian Space Agency and also some additional funding from JITSI, so the WA government as well. But for those that may not be sort of eligible, so it is for Australian based small to medium enterprises. For BMT, we did take that sort of the subsets of the Australian division of the global company were considered to be, that small to medium enterprise, and had, as Lee mentioned, had the technical capability and certainly the ability to support some of the work that we're doing, so that longer term transition and upskilling within the team. And we've also been supporting some research organisations as well. As I mentioned, we started University of Sydney. The professor did transfer across to Curtin, but that wasn't part of the thing. It was initially awarded through University of Sydney. We have had other projects with Curtin University as well. But it is open to people. For larger sectors, you can still engage with the broader team, but there would be a cost associated with that. So I'd certainly still encourage people to reach out, and we can work out whether that's something that we can utilise the government funding to provide that support. And then alternatively, there's a cost model which the CIC team have been operating for over 5 years now, and continuing to grow and bring on board new projects. So if you sort of hesitating because you don't think you fit that criteria, I would still encourage you to reach out either directly to Asdaf or through the CIC. There's a separate business development manager that manages that team as well, but we work really closely together to see what we can do to support things. It's also been really interesting, I think, for us to learn as far as where the needs and the gaps are. I might just hand back over to Lee to share a little bit about another small project that we're doing with the data downloader tool, which came up as a result of the numerous requests that we're actually getting from industry for the same sort of challenges. So this might be something that some of the people that are online at the moment are also facing. So you'll be pleased to know that we will have some support there. And also, I think the reason why I'm bringing this one up as well is that what we're actually finding is this data downloader tool will then be used to then customise for some of the projects. So it's the initial part that we are doing. I'll hand over to Lee to give a bit of an overview of that.
Thanks, Sasha. I guess, before I go on to the downloader tool, I should probably say one of the key messages here is if you do have some sort of project idea, no matter what stage of it is, reach out. If you don't reach out and you don't contact us, we can't really help you at all. But yeah, you'd be surprised. We should be able to help you almost whatever stage of the project idea process you're at. In terms of the downloader tool, something we did notice is a lot of people contacting us were having issues even accessing the data outside of commercial providers. And one of the things we will start developing soon is a downloader tool that'll give you a very simple Python API to just query Australian repositories of this data. So you can get high download speeds, low latency access to this data. Thanks, Asha.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Lee. I might ask Faisal in a minute to turn on his video so that people can see another one of our team members, sorry. But so part of the process, as Lee outlined, is so once we receive a request from someone, then Faisal, as our project coordinator, will reach out and look to help you with refining what that project actually looks like, and then to work through that process. So there's a lot of support that we do offer through this whole process, and you don't need to have a fully formed idea. You do need to have some consideration in terms of what that project could look like. And as Lee said, in terms of the value back to the sector, like how is it going to be used? And that might be something that Connor could sort of build on a little bit as well in terms of the work that we're doing for this current project and where you see that. So welcome so everyone can just see Faisal, see who's at the other end of the email. So thank you for just popping on so that people can see you. And I know Melanie would have loved to have been here as well, and so that people can sort of see the broader team. But Connor, sorry, Faisal, I don't know if you wanted to say anything or just a quick hi to people that are joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Lee have almost explained everything, that the process is quite simple. We have our AOI is open. You guys submit the application. It's quite easy form. Just fill in your details and initial ideas about the project and submit in. And then I will coordinate your team and between our resources, and we can arrange a meeting. We will refine the proposal, submit the proposal to the committee selection board, and they will select the project accordingly. So it's a quite easy process, but we want you to submit so that we can see what idea you have. And as Lee said, don't be shy. No idea is big or small. We can help you refining it very well.
Thanks for that Faisal. So yeah, Connor, I think that was one of the things that I know we initially talked about when you first submitted it, as far as, well, what's that value and what does that look like? And it can be a bit of a challenge sort of thinking that how to articulate it, but maybe share with the audience your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the source of the value I see in our project is, I mean, like, sort of self-interested in that it makes, you know, my life a lot easier, but it also gives me more access to you know, more scenes and to provide better data for our customers. But then I guess what I will envisage happening is that once it's completed and I have a good enough handle on it where I feel like I can teach, then, yeah, we'll essentially, just like my previous efforts within BMT. So I kind of work within an environmental data subgroup, and you know, that there's part of that role is in you know, finding the relevant people within the organization and then training them on the little things that we've come up with, and this definitely will go through into some of my other work that sort of sits alongside it, which is more looking at, you know, imagery that's collected in the field. We talked a little bit about, you know, commercialization, and I think some of the algorithms and some of the information in there would make that potentially more troublesome than rewarding, but like in terms of cost and benefit to us. But yeah, there's definitely aspects of it that I feel will go within the Australian BMT company, and then, yeah, it's sort of interesting planting that seed and then seeing where people will, because I have a perspective on it, but then it's sort of like what the process that you guys are going through now, where someone comes in with a novel idea or a novel application, and that can be just tweaked a little tiny bit, and it has even further applications. So
excellent. No, thanks for that, Connor. And I think that, you know, one of the challenges that we all face is trying to do more with less. And I think that however we can really be, supporting that optimizing of even internal process and things like that, that really increases your capacity to be offering more. So I think, that can also be where that value lies. For those that aren't familiar, Lee's background is in high performance computing. So, I think that maybe Lee, if you want to sort of build on some of the ways in which you can help people if they're struggling with their compute.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's generally a few there are quite a lot of ways we can help with projects. It can be from remote sensing expertise. So if you're maybe don't have the particular staff in-house with expertise in a particular area of remote sensing that is quite relevant to what you do, being a HPC specialist and having a lot of experience in that, we can also help if you're having issues with whatever processes you already have going, not being fast enough or somehow being slow. We can look into maybe trying to speed them up as well, trying to make them more efficient. We can help you try and automate things a lot better. I think I covered basically everything there, but yeah. Generally, if you have an idea, reach out to us. Or if you have some sort of problem, even then, reach out to us and we may be able to help you come up with a solution to it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Lee. I think, and Connor as well, and thank you for Faisal for joining us briefly as well. I think that hopefully we've planted the seed for people to think about what some of those project ideas could be. Encourage people to get your applications in. The initial form, which for those that are watching us later, we'll make sure that we send out the link and continue to encourage people to apply, because the current round closes at the end of next week. So you've got one more week, but that first stage is fairly simple in terms of just filling in that form and sort of those initial thoughts. And then from there, we will, arrange those meetings and further scope things out from there. So it's really just making that initial contact with us and saying, look, this is a challenge that we've got, or this is something that has been on our, wish list for quite a while. Is it something that, we could sort of work on? So, they're the sorts of things where we can sort of really help to provide that extra layer of support for your internal teams. But don't have any other questions. I think we just had a comment from Data 61 for Saro as well. So they've got a huge team of data scientists as well, keen to reach out, which is great to see. But look, thank you so much, particularly to Connor. So I think it's been great working with BMT, and we're really excited to work on the next project as well with the urban heat mapping. We are getting close to finishing the first project as well. And also, Lee sharing that perspective and hopefully reassuring people that it's, it's not a sort of this, as Connor said, is it too good to be true? It is true. We can offer these services. We are here to help, and we really want to support the acceleration. In terms of, there's just a question in terms of asking about the presentation deck. So you will be able to see that as part of the recording that will be sent through, and we can certainly share any additional information through that. There's nothing that's too commercially sensitive in there. Excellent. All right, well, we will wrap up. Thank you so much to our co-presenters today. Thank you for all those that attended and that are watching us later on. We look forward to receiving people's submissions.